Hey there, welcome back to the Energy MD podcast, where we help you resolve your ME/CFS, chronic fatigue, long COVID, and MCAS so that you can live the life of your dreams. So excited about today because today you get me. Today I'm going to be talking about my 5-step sleep process to resolving sleep issues associated with ME/CFS, chronic fatigue, and long COVID. So let's go ahead and jump in here. So sleep issues are a major part of this condition, and sometimes the question is, which came first, the chicken or the egg, right? And so, did your sleep issues end up causing your fatigue, or is it part of this whole system, or this whole issue that we're seeing? And the reality is that the causes of sleep issues are very similar to the causes of chronic fatigue, ME/CFS, etc. Right? So, and if you've heard me talk before, you've heard me talk about the toxic five. So these are the major underlying root causes. This is a combination of heavy metals, chemicals, molds, infections, and trauma. These are all significant stressors that end up causing dysfunction in the body and causing a number of symptoms. One of those symptoms is sleep issues. So this could be a hard time falling asleep, a hard time staying asleep, where you're up at different points during the night, not getting enough good sleep while you're sleeping. So let's talk about how to fix it. So in the end, it's very similar to resolving ME/CFS, where you need to remove the toxic five. However, in order to be able to get there, we need to go through this 5-step process. So the first step is to replace the hormone and nutrient deficiencies. So basically what this means is that what ends up happening when you have the toxic five is you end up getting deficiencies in different parts, in different systems in the body. So you get deficiencies in hormones. So adrenals, which manages the stress in the body by producing cortisol and other hormones, ends up getting deficient when you have stressors. And these can be mental, emotional, or physical stressors. Now, mental stressors can be things that you think about on a regular basis, worry. Emotional stressors are your relationship. Is there stress in those relationships, work, etc.? And then the physical stressors are the toxic five, like I just mentioned, or some sort of structural issue that you have. Maybe you've had a motor vehicle accident and you have some damage to your body that ends up causing physical stress on the body. And so all of those are going to compromise the adrenals, and then that will in turn compromise the other hormones. So thyroid, and then the sex hormones like estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and then deficiencies. So deficiencies in vitamins, in minerals, in mitochondrial function, which produces 70 to 90% of our body. So the first step that we want to do is actually to replace these. And I call the adrenals and the mitochondria and the thyroid the big three, because actually replacing these first thing in the morning end up creating a better circadian rhythm, which helps you sleep at night. So if you're not familiar, a circadian rhythm is basically your sleep-wake cycle. And this is actually one of the major reasons why people have sleep issues at night, is that in the morning, they don't have the hormones and the nutrients that they need in order to be able to give them this nice increase in energy, this nice boost that then comes down over time. So when we take an example of like the adrenals, which produces cortisol, which is our get up and go hormone, it's our anti-inflammatory hormone. It helps to regulate the sleep-wake cycle. It manages all the other hormones. It's considered the sentinel gland. It's very important, and it starts to be produced in the body at midnight, and it peaks at 6 o'clock in the morning, right? And then it comes down throughout the day until it's time to go to sleep. Okay, so that's kind of what we're looking for with these other hormones and nutrients as well. Now, what ends up happening when you're waking up during the night is that your sleep-wake cycle is off, and you don't have this nice curve where you're peaking in the morning and then it comes down throughout the day. Instead, what you have is you have an up-down throughout the day, and then you also have an up-down throughout the night. And so that's basically energy and crashing, energy and crashing. So consequently, if that's happening during the day, it's reflected also at night. And in general, the time that you crash during the day is the time that you're awake at night. So oftentimes, if you're crashing between 2 and 4 p.m., the time that you will be awake is 2 and 4 a.m. Okay? And so that's just because of this circadian rhythm dysfunction. Okay, so that's the first thing that you need to do is we want to replace those deficiencies, the big three, the adrenals, the mitochondria, the thyroid, which get everything working better. And then if you are postmenopausal, and your symptoms, your sleep got worse after menopause, then estrogen is going to help you stay asleep and progesterone is going to help you fall asleep. And then in terms of vitamins, B12 is a very important vitamin where taking that first thing in the morning along with the big three will also help to improve your energy during the day and then also your sleep at night. And then iron can also be very supportive as well, though you don't want to take it near your thyroid, so I recommend taking it around noontime. Now, just an aside about iron is that when you have a lot of these different infections and parasites, etc., they will be utilizing iron in different ways in the body. So you might look like you're low in iron, but the reality is that it's because of how iron is being used in the body and sequestered into different components or different parts of the body. So just because you have low iron doesn't mean that you actually need iron, because if you're going to take iron, you're going to be feeding the infections, but you also are going to be supporting yourself. So that is a negotiation that you have to have with the provider, whoever you're working with. But in general, if your ferritin is not really below 30 or even 20, I usually, and your TIBC is not above 375 per se, I'm not really going to recommend that people take iron. Okay, so then the next step, step two, is going to be lifestyle modifications. So if you've had sleep issues and you've seen a practitioner, a natural practitioner, even a conventional doc, they'll talk about the lifestyle habits that will help. Okay, and so these are things like going to bed between 9 and 10. The hours that you get before 10 or the time that you get before 10 actually is really supportive. Making sure that you're avoiding things like caffeine and alcohol and tobacco. You know, caffeine can stay in the body for up to 20 hours, right? So if you're having your morning cup of coffee, that can interfere with your sleep. So cutting back on and or removing your caffeine is a really great way of seeing whether or not it's affecting your sleep. And then alcohol, it may feel like it's actually helping you, but in the long run, it actually hurts and decreases your neurotransmitters that end up affecting your ability to go to sleep. Tobacco can be stimulating, you know, especially a couple hours before bed. You really want to try to time so that you're going to bed and waking up at the same time every day. And then you want to make sure that your bedroom is really set up for sleep and sex only. So reading and watching TV should be done outside of the room, trying to create a really nice situation for sleep, like blackout curtains is really important. Making sure you can have, if you want some white noise or you want some air moving, whatever it is that you need to create a really nice environment for you. Sometimes doing some exercise in the evenings can help, and sometimes it can hurt. So it really depends on who you are, but you want to test that as well. Sometimes exercise is better in the morning. Now, if you do have ME/CFS or chronic fatigue or long COVID and your energy is not good, you know, and you have post-exertional malaise, where basically if you exercise that you're going to feel worse, you don't want to do this, right? So you only want to do the amount of exercise that's not going to make you feel worse. In terms of food, sometimes you need to be eating protein before bed. Sometimes that's supportive for people, and sometimes you want to avoid eating right before bed, and you want to try to eat your dinner as early in the day as possible. You know, like 5 or 6 o'clock, and then no snacks after that. So oftentimes going to bed with an empty stomach or relatively empty stomach can actually be really good for your sleep and improve the quality of your sleep because your body's not being distracted by trying to digest food. You definitely want to avoid screen time at least 2 hours before bed, and making sure that you've got blue light blockers for your computer and for your phone to block the blue light that can interfere with the pineal gland and your production of melatonin. Going outside first thing in the morning and getting as much sunlight as you can, even if it's just outside for just a moment, 1 minute, 5 minutes, can really significantly improve your circadian rhythm. You know, so many of us are working from home, and we forget sometimes that we really need to go outside and uh, and get some exposure to the sunlight. You know, make sure your bed and your pillow are comfortable, of course. Regulate your temperature of your sleep environment. So trying to make it cool so that you feel warm under your covers, but that it's cool outside. Decreasing your evening stress can be really important. So, from the moment that you finish dinner, the rest of your evening should really be preparing you for bedtime. So this means ideally not working and doing relaxing things, enjoyable things, not getting into arguments with people. If you do have pets that are interrupting your sleep, you do want to remove them from your sleep environment. Yes, we know that you love them, and yes, they still know that you love them, but they can't be interfering with your sleep. Okay. Sometimes electromagnetic fields in the bedroom can cause issues, so you want to have your phone as far away from your head and your body as possible. If you are going to keep it in the bedroom, ideally keep it in another room. Make sure that the phone is turned off, or at least all of the signals on the phone, the Wi-Fi, the Bluetooth, the mobile data, all of those things are turned off. So essentially you're in airplane mode. Make sure that everybody's phones are turned off, not just yours as well. And then if you can't sleep, for after about a half an hour, if you're finding that that's an issue, you want to do something to distract yourself. Maybe you need to listen to something, an audiobook or whatever. Try to download it onto your phone so you don't have to reconnect to the internet. Maybe it's something that, if you're thinking about work, maybe you need something that's going to cause you to think about something else. I like sports commentary, so sometimes that's something that I'll do if I need to distract myself, if for some reason I'm waking up in the middle of the night, or if I'm having a hard time falling asleep. If you do snore or have morning headaches, you do want to get a sleep study to rule out obstructive sleep apnea. And I do recommend mouth taping. Taping can be quite excellent. You can take a piece of, I like to use surgical tape, put it vertically in the middle of the lips so that if you did actually need to breathe out the side of your mouth, so you're not too claustrophobic. But that can be incredibly helpful because breathing through the sinuses actually puts you more into your parasympathetic, which is your rest and digest and your relaxation response. And so you can sleep better. And then the last thing that I generally recommend when it comes to lifestyle habits is some breath work, something called Nadi Shodhana that I learned when I did my yoga teacher training, which is basically covering up one nostril, breathing in the opposite nostril, switching the nostrils so that you're covering up the next one, breathing out that opposite nostril, breathe back in that nostril, and then switch over to the next one and keep going back and forth. And this is supposed to bring the hemispheres of the brain into alignment. It's also a very mindful practice, and it allows you to fall asleep. So then step 3 is utilizing some natural sleep aids. Okay, and so if we replace deficiencies, giving you things in the morning to help recreate their circadian rhythm, giving you some things in the evening if you're postmenopausal to help with that. We've got the lifestyle habits dialed in. So then the next step is going to be these natural sleep aids. So utilizing something that's going to increase GABA, which is the central nervous system inhibitor, which causes our bodies to relax, and or adding in something like melatonin. So the products that I like for this are the Nutrimetics Amantia, Amantilla, which is valerian, which increases GABA. And I do recommend starting off at just like a drop and increasing slowly over time to up to 10 or 15 drops. And then I do like the Nutrimetics melatonin as well. And this one is actually more potent than it appears, where you only need like a couple of drops. And I do like tinctures for most of what I do because it allows us to individualize the treatment for folks. If you're not going to use these products, you're going to use other products, then you can use GABA to the tune of a couple hundred milligrams per night. And the melatonin is going to be somewhere between maybe 1 and 5 milligrams per night, though you can go up higher than that, but I wouldn't recommend it in this context. Taking a nice relaxing bath at night that has Epsom salt in it can be incredibly supportive. If you can't tolerate Epsom salt because of the sulfur in there, you can use magnesium chloride, which is in a product called like Magna Gel or some of these other ones. But magnesium is very relaxing. It relaxes the muscles, relaxes the nervous system. And then there are a number of different components like phosphatidylserine can be supportive, sometimes CBD oil. If you do need a prescription, trazodone is a weak antidepressant that doesn't have a lot of side effects that I would start people when I used to prescribe, start them at like 25 milligrams a night and ramp them up to a maximum of 200 milligrams a night. But this would be after I added in some of those other components. And then if you need your mattress, you need to decrease the temperature of your mattress. I do like a product called Chili Pad, and I'll drop that link below. And then if you're still having issues at that point, then it's time to go after a number of these infections that are causing these neurotransmitter deficiencies like GABA and serotonin and melatonin that end up causing issues with falling asleep and staying asleep, and that are also causing all those deficiencies. So the toxic 5 that I talked about, the heavy metals, chemicals, molds, infections, and trauma, all of those things will contribute to these challenges related to sleep. So you want to make sure that you're addressing those. And we've got a 4-step process that we take people through. If you're interested in learning more about that, you can check us out at EnergyMDMethod.com. And then step 5 is fixing any sort of anatomical abnormalities. So this is 5th because oftentimes, 90% of the time we can fix sleep with all of these other components. So if you're snoring and you have sleep apnea and you're using a CPAP or a BiPAP machine, if you've got large tonsils, if you've got a deviated septum, or if you have chronic nasal congestion or nasal polyps, so many of those things can be remedied by working on the toxic 5 and removing the infections and the allergies that are in your body. But if that's still an issue at the end, then looking at repairing some of these things. But I can't tell you how many times I hear people tell me about how they had certain surgeries that were done to correct some anatomical issues, and they still had problems sleeping, or they still had their symptoms. And then we go ahead and we fix the toxic 5, and then they get better, and they never actually needed to have that surgery. So these are the 5 steps that we take people through as part of our programs when we are working on sleep. Hope this was helpful for you. If you are interested in the work that we do, check us out at EnergyMDMethod.com. I'll drop all the links below that I've discussed in this video, and I look forward to seeing you in our next episode. Take care. So if you have chronic fatigue, long COVID, or mast cell activation syndrome, and you're looking for help, check us out at EnergyMDMethod.com. We have a program for almost every single budget, and we're here to help. I hope you learned something on today's podcast. If you did, please share it with your friends and family and leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. It's really helpful for getting this information out to more people who desperately need it. Sharing all the experts I know and love and the powerful tips I have is one of my absolute favorite things to do. Thanks for being part of my community. Just a reminder, this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional care by a doctor or other qualified medical professional. It is provided with the understanding that it does not constitute medical or other professional advice or services. Thanks for listening, and have an amazing day.